morning, Miramar, and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Tamara G. As always, you can check us out on all of our social media. We are on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at City of Miramar. And with us today is Dr. Bernard A. Harris Jr. He is a physician, an astronaut, a venture capitalist, and a philanthropist. He's a veteran NASA astronaut, y'all, a real astronaut. He's logged more than 438 hours and traveled over 7.2 million miles in space. I can't wait to talk to him because he has a new book out. He's sharing his journey, and it's an honest discussion of his struggles, ambitions, hopes, and dreams as a testimony to the voyage that we all face with a desire to discover the power from within. And it is called Embracing Infinite Possibilities. Welcome to the show, Dr. Harris. I'm so excited.
Remember, I need to take you around with me. That was a wonderful introduction.
Listen, I was all geeked out because I'm like, the chance to talk to a real astronaut. That is, do you know? Well, I know you know how rare that is in this space and time that people are able to go into space.
Certainly, you're correct about that. I mean, the number of folks who've gone to space is a really small group, and
Mhm.
even smaller if you count African Americans or blacks or even people of color in
Right,
space. But
right.
that is going to change because of what we call the new space economy. I hope we'll get a chance to talk a little bit about that too.
Okay, I can't wait. So I have to ask this question. What prompted you to want to become an astronaut? You know, did you look at the stars when you were younger? Were you always wanting to know if there was life out of space? And we're going to ask you the question, did you find anybody or anything? But, what made you dream that dream? Because as you mentioned, for people of color, it's not a large percentage of people who get to actually do that dream.
So I grew up in partly in Texas and also in New Mexico and Arizona because my mom was an educator and she got a job working for the Bureau of Indian Affairs. So I actually grew up from age 7 or so to around 15 on the Navajo Nation. And
Wow.
it was out there, away from the lights of the city that I could look up at the heavens and see those stars. And I was inspired by, wondering what were those lights and if there were planets, could I go visit? And at the same time, the American space program was developing. And in 1969, when I was 13 years old, Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin landed on the moon. And I said, I want to follow in their footsteps. And so that's how the dream began.
Wow. I mean, you have lived, Dr. Harris, probably five different lifetimes for people because, again, growing up on the Navajo reserves and just being around different people and different things, living in different states. You were born in Texas, which obviously that means you're an awesome person already. But being in Arizona, being in New Mexico, and working around different people and being around different people, it's it's almost as if you were destined to be in this type of lifestyle. Do you feel that way?
I actually do. I firmly believe that we all have certain opportunities that are uniquely ours, that we were born for a reason. And I think I was born to be in space. Not only did I come into this world with this natural curiosity about science and science fiction, I was really felt drawn to STEM, what we call STEM now, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And so when I was in high school, I had to decide on what I wanted to major in because I knew I couldn't go to college to be an astronaut. I mean, they don't have that major. So I
Right.
chose medicine. So that's how I ended up choosing my first profession, which is medicine. And so if someone asks me, who are you? I typically say that I'm a physician who went to medical school, of course, who then became an astronaut, who then got into business and became a venture capitalist, and then who did all the other things. But the foundation was that education, was that solid education around medicine that set me on my pathway to do all of those things.
Wow. Well, let's talk about STEM since we're here already. And then even STEAM. So I can tell you right now, Dr. Harris, I'm more on the artsy side.
That's
Um,
your
the,
take.
the math and science was not my forte. But truly, I have found that people who have your brain, they think a certain way. They go through life a certain way. That math and that science, it's almost a lot. It seems like it's logical to you guys that everybody should get it. And then I'm the opposite when it comes to arts. I feel like everybody should get that too. Why don't you like music? Why don't you like movies? And so schools now are trying to put both of them together and call it STEAM, but particularly the STEM. I know that you have seen it, that possibly it's not necessarily pushed in our community, or maybe it's not that it's just people don't think that we can do math and science.
And that is a belief and sometimes a stereotype that we have to deal with as people of color, and particularly Black people, because we're told what we cannot do.
Hmm.
And my whole life is around enabling everyone, all communities, to realize the uniqueness of us all and the contribution that we are responsible to make in this world. Right. And so I created the Harris Foundation over 30 years ago, focus in trying to go into our communities, those disadvantaged communities,
Hmm.
to kind of spread the word that don't believe the hype. In fact, you are born for a reason. You are born with these talents that are uniquely yours.
Hmm.
You're born with the ability to do anything that you want to be. And that's the message that I like to deliver. And I'm not recruiting for people to be an astronaut, although, I need more of us to become an astronaut and get involved in that new space economy that I mentioned a
Right,
minute ago.
right.
But science and technology is involved in everything that we do, even in the arts. And so that's why it's so easy to combine arts with STEM and come up with STEAM, because everything is connected. Many years ago, I used to say in the 21st century, 9 out of 10 jobs are going to require expertise in math and science. And I would say 100% of the jobs, I'm going out on a limb here, require
I'm in
some.
trouble then, Dr. Harris.
No, 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 no. You fit right in. Just think about what you're doing here with your show. That's all art. And that is enabled by technology, isn't it? Right?
It
We're actually
is. You're
having
right,
this
because everything
conversation.
we do, you're right. We're doing this via Zoom because
Everything
you're
we
in
do.
Texas, I'm here. Yep.
Yep. So if we are, as a community, as a Black community, uh, wanting to, participate equally with the rest of the communities here in the United States, that means that we have to begin to get our expertise to show our young people, to show our kids that anything is possible, and particularly if you're educated, and educated is that enabler. Whether you go to college or not, you still need to be educated.
I agree totally. If you are just now tuning in, we are speaking with Dr. Bernard A. Harris Jr. He has a new book called Embracing Infinite Possibilities, Letting Go of Fear to Find Your Highest Potential. As we mentioned earlier, he is a physician. He is an astronaut, a venture capitalist, and a philanthropist. And we're talking to him about the new book. I'm going to pull it up in just a little bit. But the first question I wanted to ask is, what do you mean by embracing these infinite possibilities?
So I've already alluded to one of my mottos that no matter what group that I talk to, I say there are three things that I know about you: that you were born for a reason, that you were born multi-potential, and you're born multi-talented. And so I usually go through all of that to sort of underscore those important points. And in combining those things, I put them under the umbrella of this motto that we are infinite beings with infinite possibilities, because we're born with those three things that I talked about. And if we are cognizant of who we are and where we are and where our ambitions lie, that is the road to success, however you define that success. And so that's why it's important. So when I say embracing infinite possibilities, it is taking on for yourself what that means. It means pulling that all together so that you can fulfill your full potential in this world.
I mean, I'm sitting here thinking about that because as a little girl from East Texas, I always wanted to travel the world. I always wanted to be on the radio. And at the time, your circumstances, single parent household and everything, the dreaming, I think is you have to at least want it to know that you can try to do it. You know what I'm saying? And so when you just said that, that kind of hit me because I guess I was that little girl too. You have to want to dream something or want to see something bigger. But what about those folks who may not have that background? I mean, I was always told to read and my mother encouraged, education and me learning. That's how I learned about new places and wanted to travel. I was like, oh my gosh, I want to go to Egypt because I read about the pyramids. But what if you don't have that? How do you manifest that in yourself?
Well, that is the byline of the title of the book, of course, right? Letting go of fear to reach your fullest potential. We all come in here with what I talked about, that the ability to do anything that you want to do in life. But sometimes life gets in the way, and life presents to us these challenges that we have to overcome. And nobody gets out of that. None of us get out of life scot-free. We all have to get engaged with our life, and being engaged in life means that we're going to have these challenges and these obstacles. As Black people in this country, we have a lot of things to overcome. We have folks that tell us that we're a certain way, and we feel that we have to um, go against that, to say no, no, no. I am just as good, just as qualified, and just on and on and on, as you so well know. And in that, if we get uh, overcome by our fears and overcome by these external forces, then we can lose out on accomplishing our dream. And so the whole book is about, figuring out, who you are, number one, and number two, laying that foundation, creating that fertile ground so that you can grow into who you are to be. And so there are a lot of stories that I tell, mostly about myself. As an example, I'm an astronaut, I'm a pilot, I'm a scuba diver. I've done all those things, right?
You have broken every stereotype, sir, while I'm sitting here talking to you, Dr. Harris.
And
So,
and I and people might think and say, well, he's fearless in doing all those things. And I would say that I don't know if I would call myself fearless, but I can tell you what, I have used that fear, sometimes that apprehension, and I have grown from those. I've grown from my failures. I've grown from my successes. Sometimes people are afraid of succeeding. And so I talk about all of those things in that context so that people can reach their full potential.
and when you said that and we mentioned earlier that you are all of these things, venture capitalist, a physician, an astronaut, would you describe yourself as an overachiever, or are these things that just came naturally to you and therefore, because I know you have to think to yourself, well, why doesn't it come naturally to everybody?
The I'll check all of the above. Yes, I'm an overachiever. And I'm an overachiever for a few reasons. One is that, when I was growing up, one of the first challenges I had to deal with were my parents divorcing when I was 6 years old. That was one of those turning points for me where I could say, oh, my parents divorced and I'm going to give up on life and go down a different path. And many have done that path. And I decided not to do that. I decided to say, okay, what can I learn from this? Unfortunately, I had my mother and I had my family to get me through that period of time. But I learned something. I learned how valuable education was. I realized that my mom was educated. My dad had a high school education, not as educated, so his options were limited. education provided her with these options. So that was my first lesson, that education provides you options that you may not have otherwise. So what happened? I was determined to go to school. And so every time I was met with a challenge, I realized that I could learn from that challenge and move forward. And that's I think that is the seminal message here for your listeners and your watchers here, that don't let the world define who you are, right? You're the only person get to determine who you're going to be.
I love that, Dr. Harris. And I love your mother too, because when you told me this, we were talking off mic and how your parents got divorced when you were 6 and she moved away in the Navajo reservation. I thought, man, she's a Renaissance woman because you just didn't do that in the 60s.
No, no, not at all. You think about the 60s. Think about also my aspiration of being an astronaut.
Mhm.
When I looked at NASA, I didn't see anybody who looked like me
Right.
or any person of color. But we now know, now that we've gone back in history, that there were folks who were working behind the scene. There were women who were working behind the scene, and
Doing the
people.
math calculations.
There you go. Yeah, doing
And
the math calculation, right? And enabling all of this, but that was not in the forefront of our history. But now we know different. And so, those folks, my success, I should say, I'm standing on the shoulders of those forefathers and mothers that paved the way for me.
Wow. If you are just joining us, first of all, thank you so much for watching Good Morning Miramar. I'm Tamara G. And with me today, I have Dr. Bernard A. Harris Jr. He is the author of Dreamwalker, A Journey of Achievement and Inspiration, Embracing Infinite Possibilities, Letting Go of Your Fear to Find Your Highest Potential. And we've mentioned that he's had more lifetimes in one than most people as a practicing physician, as an astronaut, as a venture capitalist. And we're going to talk about, as you mentioned, about that money in space because it's coming. We all know it. But I do want to ask about your time in space. Well, before we do that, which one was scarier, being a physician or being an astronaut?
Well, I would say there were scary parts for both,
Right, right.
but
Okay.
certainly blasting off on a rocket, as some astronauts have joked in the past, built by the lowest bidder, gets your attention.
Yeah,
But
I see y'all have some a sense of humor. That's
do.
cute.
I have to have a sense of humor. So let me, if I could, for your viewers, let me describe that. I flew on the shuttle, two shuttles. Columbia was my first mission. Discovery was the second one. And this vehicle weighed 5 million pounds. In order to get it into air, we have to light 5 engines that produce a thrust of 7.5 million pounds. So when those engines light, you're getting into space in a hurry. It only takes 8.5 minutes to get to orbit, reaching a speed of 17,500 miles an hour, which means we can go around the world every 90 minutes, get to see a sunset or sunrise every 45 minutes. It's pretty eye-opening. But that's a lot of energy and it's a lot of force as you're getting into space. But once you're there, it's incredible. You're 250 miles above the Earth, looking back at the beautiful sunsets and sunrises from space and floating in a place of microgravity. So it's pretty amazing. So it's a little scary part. On my second mission, I not only got to blast off in space, but I got to walk in space. And that was exciting too, because
So you were actually outside
I
of
was
the
I
space
was
shuttle.
actually outside. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah.
Okay, sir, those were a lot of lofty numbers, big numbers, and everything. It sounded like it was dangerous. That's what I got out of it. Going this fast and getting there in 8 minutes and all of this other kind of stuff. It sounded like it's dangerous. But I mean, obviously you know that, and it's the final frontier. I'm a Star Trek fan. So we know that. Do you think that there's going to be a time where we are living in space? You've been there. Do you think that that's going to happen?
Happening as we're speaking today. Um, Above us, 250 nautical miles, is the International Space Station. And there are at least 5 or 6 crew members up there right now. We've had this station up for over 25 years or so, and we'll probably be up there for another 5 years as they begin to change out and evolve that. But there are going to be other orbiting platforms, other stations, manufacturing facilities on orbit in the near future. Next year, we will have the first humans back to the moon in over 50 years or so. And one of those is an African American called Victor Glover. And he is the pilot on that mission, and we're excited that he's going to be doing that. And also, the first woman will also be on that mission. This is just going to pave the way for not only the United States, but other countries that are also involved in putting on orbit platforms and then later going on to the moon, having colonies on the moon. And what I'm trying to picture here is this future, very near future, 5 to 10 years from now, where we have these platforms. And if people choose to have jobs in space, there will be jobs in space. And there will be an economy that'll develop between the Earth and low orbit and also the moon. And that's what we call the new space economy.
Well, I keep saying I want to move because I'm so sick of these people down here. I'm like, just tell me how much it costs. I'll go. But why are there so many people and so many skeptics that don't believe that you all have traveled to space, that you've landed on the moon, that America has done this? Who makes this up? Why would you make that up?
It's all made up. What can I say? I can't speak for them. I can only speak for myself and those of us who are participating in this. I will say this, though. If we don't, all of our communities, particularly the African American community, if we don't participate in this new space economy, we're going to be left literally here on Earth. I can tell you that those jobs that are going to be in on orbit and on the moon are going to be high paying jobs. I can tell you that the knowledge in the technology that we're going to be developing up there will not only apply for up in space, but also will drive the economies here on Earth. And so that's why it's important for us to embrace this.
Wow, I'm just like it's happening sooner than later. And of course, I jokingly say that I want a Caribbean island, a deserted island that I can go and live on. And I also want to live in space because I want to get away from people down here because they're crazy. But that's it's funny that you say that this is going to be happening sooner than later and that we need to get in on the money trail because it does seem like people who of color, kind of miss out sometimes, even though we're some of the ones that are behind the technology. We don't capitalize on it in some kind of way.
Exactly. Exactly. You're exactly right. And that's sort of my new mission is to kind of spread the word. So twofold, working on the pipeline to make sure our young people, when they're thinking about what they want to do in the future, have this as part of that landscape, part of their thought process. And realizing if they see someone who looks like them, like me, that they can participate in. I can't tell you how many communities I've been in where I was the first, African American astronaut that they had seen, and they didn't realize that we were actually in space. And why is because we are not actively ensuring that our young people have that view and have that picture. And also, let's face it, some of our communities are struggling, and some of our folks are struggling, and so it's hard to have that picture of the future when you're just focused on today. But what I'm saying is that if you can focus on today with an eye on the future, that's going to help you prepare your children and our communities for that future where they can actually thrive.
I'm sorry, I just muted myself. I said you said a mouthful there with that. So now tell us where people can find the book because obviously this is something that people need to have on their shelves. They need to be reading it and also getting it for the younger generation. Embracing infinite possibilities, letting go of fear to find your highest potential. It is Dreamwalker, a journey of achievement and inspiration. Dr. Bernard A. Harris Jr. Where can they get it just so that they can at least put that possibility in? My nephew loves planes, so I actually am going to be taking him to an expo an airplane expo type kind of thing. And he's only 7. But when I tell you he knows, the different planes when they fly over the house, he can tell you, oh, that's a Southwest, that's, whatever. And he is just fascinated by it. So I feel like I've got to do something to nourish that.
Glad that you're doing that because it really is about exposure, exposing our young people to these infinite possibilities. So the book is available on Amazon, Barnes and Noble, all the book outlets. And so if you just go on, Google or Bing or whatever, site that you use and just put in that title or put in my name, it will show up and you can just link, it'll send you to the link or just go directly to Amazon.
Sounds good. Dr. Bernard A. Harris, again, I'm going to encourage everybody to get the book. I have enjoyed our conversation today. These two native Texans talking and catching up. It is called Dreamwalker, A Journey of Achievement and Inspiration, Embracing Infinite Possibilities, Letting Go of Fear to Find Your Highest Potential. And I think this is for everyone, not just people who are interested in STEM or STEAM, but truly a life volume that you can use to get you to that next place. If you're stuck or if you don't even know where to turn or where to start, this is probably one of those books that's going to show you that way.
Tamara, thank you so much. This has been my pleasure to be on your show.
Thank you very much, Dr. Harris. And thank you for watching Good Morning Miramar. Until next time, I'll see you later.